Welcome back to Everybody Loves Raymond. It's a special day in the Barone Zone. My name's Adam Rudy. I'm joined by our regulars, Michael Dormer.
Hello, everyone.
And, of course, Alex Shear.
Hi, it's a miracle we're even here today.
Yes, challenges were faced, challenges were overcome, and a man who is not a challenge and has so far been a joy and a pleasure is... He's the host of the podcast High School Slumber Party. He is friends with our previous guest, Olivia Hartle, and hopefully today he'll become friends of us. Brian Rodriguez is here. Hi, Brian.
Hey.
Happy to be in the Barone Zone. Very excited, guys. This is fun. I'm a sitcom junkie, and I've been waiting for this moment all day.
I'm so excited to have somebody on this show who's passionate about sitcoms, because mostly we get people who confuse Ray Romano and Jerry Seinfeld. So it's definitely good to have an expert. Brian, before we get into the wider world of sitcoms, I have one question for you. It's, of course, the question we ask all of our guests. How'd you meet Ray?
Woo, I was thinking about this one, and I really had to go back into my mind and figure out when was the first time I heard of this show. And actually, when I did my research, it was season 1.
Really?
How old was I? I was 10, I think.
Wow.
Around 10, around that age. And I was a big TGIF fan on ABC.
Mm-hmm.
And watched it every time. I forgot what was on, like Sabrina the Teenage Witch or something.
Hell yeah.
And I remember my mom saying to me, you know, there are other options on Friday.
And you slammed your foot down and you said, we are an ABC household.
Houses were like that at the time. I mean, I later became hardcore NBC. But
of course.
I remember her pitching the show Everybody Loves Raymond to me, like, oh, I watched it the other day, it's kind of funny, it's a Long Island guy. And I realized she was talking about the first season because I believe that was the only time it was on Friday, so it must have been early on. I know the show like would gain momentum, and then eventually I'm old enough where I was watching new episodes here and there, like the later, I don't know what season it is, but later on when they go to Italy, big deal.
Yeah.
So I remember those episodes live. I remember the finale of that season. I remember the season premiere of the following season, and Robert has like 2 girlfriends, and it's like, what's going on? Regardless, we are jumping the gun here. Point is, I have a long history with Raymond. It's a show I have not revisited front to back, so maybe I'll do it with you guys.
Well,
very exciting.
You'll at least do this part with us. I also remember I'm younger than you, but I remember the Italy episode live, and I was like, elementary school aged, so I didn't fully understand. I just, honestly, my memory of it was that it was beautiful. It was just it's just a little boy watching the TV, and I was like, I saw Ray kick that ball with that kid, and I was like, God, tears rolling down my face. God damn it. And that was the first time I said God damn it, and it's been a downhill slope from there. But
how dare you?
With your history with TGIF, though, I'm curious what you think of our goalposts for the scale that we rate Ray on the barometer, where 10 on our scale of 1 to 10 is Danny Tanner, who sort of exemplifies the TGIF vibe for me. Do you think,
for sure,
are there any contemporaries of that you think you could either place on the scale or that you think might be a good candidate for the 10 spot?
It's a tough question because as I got older, I started to eschew the family sitcom, if you will. Mm-hmm. And, I got into Friends and I thought that was so cool. And, then I became like a real student of the game in my personal time. You mentioned, that I'm friends with Olivia, who's an actual, has an actual doctorate. I don't know why I did air quotes. Please, it's real. It's real. But
any of those words, air quotes around them, are highly offensive. An actual
a later
doctorate.
Thing I was going to say. When I say study, and that's what I meant to do.
Okay.
Sitcoms. I did not professionally study sitcoms. I am just a loser
Right.
So
same. I think
so
same's all around here.
Yes, and that's where the air quotes belong.
Mhm.
But I I went back and watched all of Dick Van Dyke, and which I love, Mary Tyler Moore,
Mhm.
Taxi. Really, my mom. This is what I don't know. I'm going way back, but my mom had me when she was like 22,
Mhm.
so we felt fairly close in age, believe it or not. And she would tell me about all the sitcoms she grew up with, and then Nick at Night came out, and TV Land, and all these things. So when I got older, I became interested in that stuff, and then again, Friends, Frasier, adult stuff. I detested stuff like Full House. It was beneath me,
Really?
because it was just like, oh, so lame.
Mhm.
Like, Frasier's going to the opera and making like Pavarotti jokes, and
Sherry.
Danny
and,
Tanner.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'll have to stew on that question, but I think you guys got it right. I think Danny Tanner is the gold standard for the TV dad of somewhat that era, right?
Yeah. I think it would be interesting to see Frasier and Danny Tanner interact. And I mean, Danny Tanner is very, like, when you realize how rich Danny Tanner has to be to afford that house and, all of the to be able to raise those girls in the environment that he does, Frasier would still talk down to him. He'd be like,
it's amazing to think about that.
yeah. I'd love to see it. Okay, here's the real question. I don't know if this is the real question, but this is the question that popped into my head, is which, and regardless of sexuality and gender, who from classic sitcoms would you like to see hook up?
Oh, this is regardless of sexuality and gender. You're giving me the hard-hitting questions here. So if you guys watch Taxi,
Yeah,
Tony Danza plays Tony Danza.
of course.
Who will later play the same character in Who's the Boss. I'd like to see Tony Danza from Taxi hook up with the Tony Danza from Who's the Boss. That's a mind. Wait, are we allowed to curse on this show?
Yeah, we have been criticized by one old man on Reddit for cursing on this show, but we don't take that into account, and we do curse freely.
Oh man! What a great question though. Now the Rolodex is going right. Like Roz and anyone.
Oh yeah,
Roz from Frasier is a TV crush of mine, definitely. Mm-hmm. She's awesome. I know this isn't a Frasier podcast though, so I apologize for whittling in Frasier.
We've definitely dipped our toe in Frasier. Yeah, no, I'm just gonna put a period on that sentence. But I want to turn it over to Mike and Alex because due to their technical difficulties, they've been minor participants in this conversation, but I wanted to know if you guys had anything to ask Brian.
Well, first of all, we've been participating and not being responded to, and I think part of that is just maybe you guys can't hear us.
Yeah.
So, which is our fault.
So I want you to know that we've been providing snide comments the entire time.
Oh, I love it. What's better than a snide comment in a sitcom?
What we'll do is we'll pan those to the right, and then it'll be like you're really off to the side at like another table.
So, Brian, you mentioned that even though you were an original fan, you never revisited. What is a sitcom that you have frequently revisited from like the TGIF thing? Is there one, or did you just decide to let those be?
Every time I've tried to do like Full House, I've been really disappointed and I get bored. Boy Meets World I did, and there was a lot of cool stuff there, but then they got really wacky, which I liked, and then there was continuity issues, and then I wondered where people went, hello, Mr. Turner. But yeah, I would say that's really the one I've revisited most from that line. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what happened to TGIF after they just started Disney-fying everything, and once Sabrina was a hit, they had a show with a genie once. I forgot what that was called.
Oh, that's fascinating.
They had a show with an angel once. If you guys want to, You Wish was the genie one. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
They copied that Sabrina formula, and it really died after that. But if you guys want to have a really, really fun night. Open up an old bottle of Bordeaux or something, get a glass of wine, and start watching on YouTube. Just put in like TV debuts from 1997 or TV sitcoms from 1984 or whatever. And it's like an hour long thing of either intros or trailers for all the TV shows of that year.
Wow.
The absurdity, the things that people worked hard on that you're like, what?
Yeah.
Things that, look, I love this stuff. Things that I see that I'm like, that was a thing. Henry Winkler and David Schwimmer had a show together before Friends.
Ooh.
Like it's stuff like that. Well, sorry?
Did they?
Yes. I don't know. I don't remember. It was during one of these, wine-induced evenings I have with myself.
One of your special nights where you open a bottle of wine. They're bizarre. I mean, we've talked about Women of the House, which is the Designing Women spinoff that Patricia Heaton was on before this.
I implore you guys, though, to really just, again, watch 1 year of it.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time, but watch 1 year of it. It'll blow your mind. Because, again, how many channels were there? 5 at certain times, 4 at certain times. That even the lowest rated thing would be the highest rated thing on TV these days, right?
Right.
Like, I can ask my mom about something like the third highest rated show on a Thursday in 1982. She's like, oh, I kind of remember that one, because those were your options. So that's what fascinates me the most about sitcoms, how they're forced down people's throats. And sink or swim. And some are amazing, some of the greatest writing of all time. And some are just so forgettable and they just moved on right away. Forgettable by even the people who were in them, which I love.
And then some of them are Raymond.
Yeah. Well, that just speaks to for all the shit we give Ray on this show and for how, some of the episodes are kind of uneven. It's like, it was so much better than some of the stuff that was out there that, it took a lot for it to get those 9 seasons. And honestly, I love it.
Absolutely.
Brian, I got a question for you to round out this trilogy of questions. Does that make sense?
Sure.
It was interesting hearing about your history with sitcoms, but I like to get to know someone by knowing kind of the media that they're consuming throughout their entire life. So I'm wondering, what are you watching these days?
Oof. Really tough question because I am so bogged down in my own podcasts. I am like 8 years behind on TV. So I mostly watch sports, believe it or not. I mostly listen to sports podcasts, but big Mets fan. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets. All right, we got another one.
But what am I watching on TV? That's a good question, really. I mostly watch teen films, and it's ruined my brain.
Right. Well, on that topic, do you want to give our listeners, and they are few, but they're mighty, just a quick rundown of what? Yeah, they're loud. They are the people who will walk down 4 wide on a New York City sidewalk and force you to run into traffic. Those are our listeners, and we love them. But do you want to give a quick synopsis of your podcast?
Sure. So I have a couple projects, but my main podcast is a show called High School Slumber Party. I'm a grown-ass man hosting a slumber party where we talk teen films, high school films. And if I were smart in 2017, 2018, when I started this podcast, I would have narrowed the scope to like the classics or the comedies or horror. But I just decided to do everything and anything. The pace has slowed down these days because we're bogged down in a Corey Haim, Corey Feldman quagmire of a subject matter. But it is a fun show, so I implore you to listen. And it's my life's work. Do it completely for fun. And I think I'll be doing it for a long, long time. Just had our 300th episode.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we haven't even covered some really, really big hits that I'm saving for maybe like episode 600 or 900 or something. Who knows? What I failed to really understand when I undertook the project was like, it's what you guys is doing is great, right? Everybody Loves Raymond ends at the end of season 9.
Yes, true.
You have a lot of episodes to go. but there's still, you can see the end zone. You know what I mean?
Right.
I thought I'd be able to like do this in 4 years. I was like freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. It's great. Oh boy. Like I don't know what I've gotten into.
Years.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's going to be a long time. And I forgot that they keep making teen films and then streaming came out and they're just tossing them out on Netflix. But I'm not complaining. I love doing it. It's a fun show. It's a weird show. I also started a podcast recently with my good friend Mike Manzi. Like your Barone Zone, we enter Uncle Francis's wine cellar, which are the films of Francis Ford Coppola.
Classy.
Cut by cut. And if you know anything about Coppola, he's got like 9 cuts for his most obscure films. And he likes to go back into the cutting room and do fun stuff. And we're going to do it again, cut by cut. And I drink some Coppola wine on every episode. And have a good time. And,
one of the best wines.
So definitely check that show out. Also, I'm part of what's called the Cage Club podcast network, where I'm guest starring on a lot of shows. It's called Cage Club because they started with the Nicolas Cage podcast, I think in like 2016 or something, long time now. Still do all the Cage movies. That's why it's Uncle Francis, because he is Nicolas Cage's uncle. And I'm on their Fast and Furious podcast a lot and a bunch of other stuff. So that's where you can find me. And then, you can follow me on Twitter at ohmyrodriguez, which OHMY Rodriguez. And I'm an okay Twitter follow, but if I get more followers, I'll get better because I just started this solo Twitter journey. I realized I can't complain about the Mets on my podcast Twitter because people get confused. So that's why I got my own.
Mike, do you feel the same way? I know you're not on Twitter, but do you feel like you can't complain about the Mets on this podcast? We'll never know. Okay. Well, that's great, Brian. Honestly, so much great content out there, and you'd be a fool to not go check it out. But speaking of great content, for this week in 1997, there was no greater content than Season 1, Episode 15 of Everybody Loves Raymond, which is what we'll be talking about today. We're talking about The Car, and we will get into it with Brian right after these messages from our sponsors. See you later.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from Everybody Loves Raymond. Have you ever wanted to make your own sitcom in the style of Everybody Loves Raymond? I know I have, all the time. My problem is that it's very, very difficult to film and edit videos. Well, I have a solution here. Animaker is the future of video making. Animaker is a platform for beginners, non-designers, and professionals to create animation and live action videos with just a few clicks. Start by using their drag and drop builder, thousands of templates, and a library of over 1 million stock photos and videos for free today, and see why Animaker was voted one of G2's best designed products in the world. Start creating amazing videos and sitcoms and support the show in the process by visiting Animaker through postfun.info/ads. That's postfun.info/ads. And when you get there, let them know Raymond sent you.
Welcome back to Everybody Loves Raymond. I hope you enjoyed those ads. I know we did. We're talking about Season 1, Episode 15. It's called The Car, and we've got our guest, Brian Rodriguez, here. But first, let's go around before we break it down scene by scene and get our overall impressions of the episode. Brian, what was your overall impression of The Car?
So I've been watching sporadically along with you guys. I listened to Olivia's episode and watched the episode and then been watching. And it was one of the better episodes so far that I've seen in Season 1. Season 1 in the amateur sitcom historian circles is not considered the best, which is common of Season 1. So not perfect, but I got a lot of positive thoughts and a lot of weird stuff to talk about today too. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird shit in this episode. Mike, what was your overall impression of this episode?
Similar to Brian. I will say I haven't rewatched since the beginning of since we started, and I was rewatching this and thinking, wow, Raymond's not as funny as I remember him being. And then occasionally be watching TV and just like happen upon a later episode. I'm like, that's the guy I remember. So similar to Brian, I thought it was, it was an okay episode. Definitely, I would say probably in the top 50% of the episodes we've seen thus far. But yeah, the best part there were a few moments that made me go, that took me aback, and I'm very excited. Yeah, okay, fine.
Save it for the breakdown.
Yeah, I'm very pumped to talk about some of the weirder points of this episode. Yeah, so very similar. Very similar. Yeah.
I'm thrilled you're pumped. Alex, are you pumped?
I am something. I'm cocked. I'm loaded. I stopped Mike there because I'm pretty sure, I'm 95% sure what he is excited to talk about is what I'm excited to talk about as well, and probably what you two are also kind of looking forward to discussing.
Is it safe to say we're building towards a climax?
Yeah, I think this whole episode's building towards a climax, Adam.
Yeah, that was my joke. What was your overall impression of the episode, though, Alex?
That's a great question, Adam. To answer it, basically the same as what Brian and Mike said. I agree it's probably in the top 50% of the episodes we've seen so far. I'd put it closer to like right kind of in the middle. Like it was just kind of an episode I feel like I'd forget about. Like I saw the title and at first I thought, oh, is this the one where Marie drives through the house? And it's not.
Nope.
No,
so
it's right after the Italy trip. I remember that.
So I am bummed about that. Aside from a few great visual gags, which again we'll get to, I thought it was fine. And there were some things that I'm just super pumped to discuss with you all. And I don't really want to say more than that right now. Adam, back to you.
Yes. Well, I think I'm also pumped about this episode, and I wonder how many more times we'll say pumped. But
I'm pumped to find out.
Hopefully many, many more times.
This is, hashtag pumped. This is the pumped episode. Watch Super Pumped on Showtime, the Uber not docu-series, whatever it is.
Uber?
But Uber, yeah.
Uber got a new streaming service?
Pardon?
I heard you say Uber, and I was like,
God, I really just wanted this to be an aside, but there's a dramatic retelling of the story of Uber on Showtime right now called Super Pumped. And I didn't think I was going to have to keep talking about it. But anyway.
This episode.
This is the pumped episode, and I am pumped about this episode. I realized, there are a handful of these as we're going through them that I distinctly remember certain scenes, and this is definitely one of them. But, as far as big laughs, this wasn't a huge one for me. I agree, it was like middle of the road, fine. It wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst. But are we ready to get down into the... Are we ready to start breaking it down?
Yeah, let's get in the car.
I'm pumped.
Mike, you threw me the fuck off by asking me about Super Pumped. You put me on my heels. God damn it.
I thought you were saying that Uber was launching its own streaming service, and I got very, very concerned about that.
Right in the back of the cars while you're riding an Uber.
Yeah, Taxi TV.
Ooh. So like Mad About You got a reboot season.
Right.
And it was only on like certain cable networks. Mm-hmm. And that would be the most disappointing, like Raymond or any kind of reboot season. Like it's only in the back of taxi cabs that the 10th season of Everybody Loves Raymond is going to air.
I got it. Listen, man, I got to make the trip again. I got to finish the season.
Just drive me around the block. I got to know what happens.
Yeah. So the cold open for this episode is, you know what? The snow is back on the house and looking better than ever. But Ray is on the couch with the kids, and Deborah comes home. And this felt like a cold open that was taken from stand-up. But what is really the joke here? Because he asks her to sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and the ABC song, and points out that they have the same melody. And then it just ends. So, I mean, what did we all think of this cold open? It was 15 seconds of, huh?
It felt to me like one of those posts, those bad posts that you'd see on like Twitter of just like someone saying, someone said the alphabet song and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in the same melody, and I've never been okay. It's
yes, that is exactly what this is.
Yeah, it just felt like a bad post. Maybe it bothered Ray Romano so much, he was just like, I gotta dedicate a full cold open to get this information to the public. That's my only theory, because it wasn't that funny.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. Like, I kind of, and I'm sure I'm not the only one to do this, but I've kind of equated a lot of these cold openings to, they were replaced by memes, in the modern world today, right? Like, and early Raymond especially follows just that traditional sitcom, writer's room. Everyone put things on the board and let's see if we could squeeze them in here or there. And that was definitely like, oh, what should we do for the cold opening this week? Remember that thing I said about the alphabet song and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? Let's do it. Let's just do that. We'll get into the episode. There you go. So like that definitely feels like that's going on here.
It doesn't feel like the one where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar shows up. It feels like we need something for this week or we're all getting fired.
Can you imagine if Kareem walked in and Raymond was like, yo, sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star real quick. I'm going to blow your mind.
How did you find me again, Ray? Leave me alone.
I know I'm talking too much, but can I make a side comment about that?
Yeah.
Talk more.
Thank you. I love how initially, probably when they're pitching this show, they're like, oh, Ray's a sports writer, so what we're going to do is incorporate a lot of athletes in the cold opens, and that's going to be part of the appeal of the show. People are going to wonder what athlete is coming on next week, and they totally drop that later because it wasn't their like target demo. So watching this first season, I'm like, wow, like that's an amazing concept that just never went into fruition. Sort of like a pre-Arliss sort of thing.
Oh, you mean Arla $sign?
Yes,
right,
yes,
right.
that one.
Okay. I didn't know for a second. Yeah, no, it's, and, big names, Kareem at first, and then I think there's the one in season 2 where he's on TV, and I think that has some heavy hitters in it, and like they're sprinkled, like you're saying, throughout the first couple of seasons, they're sprinkled in there, but then, it becomes more about the family, and...
Becomes kids.
Yeah. I don't want to, well, not supposed to. I don't want to spoil next episode, but I left it on when I was watching. And like I said, I'm a Mets fan. And then the first image of your next episode is Shea Stadium. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, God damn it, why didn't I pick next week? And then it's Barry Bonds, who's the
Barry Bonds in this? I totally forgot that.
And I'm like, is that very, very pre-steroided Barry Bonds talking to Raymond? And then I shut it off because I didn't want to spoil things. But so you'll get another one next week.
I can't wait to theorize about how Ray got Barry Bonds hooked on steroids.
That's the plot of the episode. Ray just being like, hey Barry, you got to try this stuff. And then that's the plot.
Yeah, so garbage cold open, and then we go to our conveyor belt opening, and Brian, what's your, there are as many openings to Everybody Loves Raymond as there are stars in the sky. What do you think about the conveyor belt opening as compared to some of the other ones that you might have seen?
Well, first of all, this is something I hated about the show at the time, and now how many different openings they were and how they couldn't settle on it. Mm-hmm. I love a good sitcom opening. Maybe Family Ties is my favorite.
Oh,
My Two Dads, that's a great one. Watch that one.
Speaking of sports stars.
But yeah, the conveyor belt does not do it for me. It doesn't have a catchy song. We get it. But thinking about all of them, it could be my favorite. I wasn't into the Steve Miller one. I thought they were like a little too high on their horse at that point. Like, oh, everyone loves this show, which I know you guys do and I do as well. But let's just use a Steve Miller song. So which one am I missing?
There's the classical music one that's shot kind of interesting. There's the Elvis remix one. Or maybe that's not the remix. I'm thinking of two different, but that song had been remixed. There's the Elvis one, which is like really late, where it's a little more conversation. that's like super late because I think there's a clip in that of Robert and Amy's wedding. I don't know. Are there other ones? Those are the only ones.
There's the playset and the anti-gravity one.
The anti-gravity one?
Jesus, I don't think I know that one.
What the fuck?
It's a conveyor belt opening, but instead of them passing on a conveyor belt, they're just floating through the air.
Oh, George Lopez style? That's awesome. I can't wait to see that.
Strange. It's like fucking new wave art like style. Like, it's strange.
That's something
I think I like that because it's like it's a take on this original one, which again, first time I saw it, blew my mind. I'm going to be honest with you. But eventually, as I'm watching it, especially when you're binging and you don't skip the intro, like we already know, dude. We get it. This is your family.
So yeah, we have our conveyor belt opening, but then we come back into the episode and we pick up immediately at the end of this cold open, which is like, I don't know if we needed to. I think we should have just left that for dead in the front of the episode, but Ray is still talking about the songs. He does a little roast of the, what is the song that he sings?
I Love You song from Barney.
Well, it's a reference to that, but they couldn't say Barney. But what is the melody of that?
This Old Man.
Ah, This Old Man. Yes. So he does a little roast of Doofy the dinosaur for not being creative. Obviously a stand-in for Barney. But so he and Deborah are in the kitchen unpacking the groceries, and then Frank and Marie enter. And I thought one of the bigger, maybe not a laugh, but a forceful exhale for me was the little divorce bit where they come in very solemnly, and Ray's like, well, at least it was amicable. But they reveal that they are selling the 1972 Valiant that they've had since Ray was in high school. And then Frank hands Ray this crusty-ass bathing suit that was in the trunk where Ray's fake ID was in the pocket of. And I'm curious to get your guys' takes on this. So Ray's fake ID has, an obviously... He is cosplaying, I guess, as an imam, and has a very, not Italian-American name.
Yeah.
I don't know what the implications of this are manifest, and I don't know how to feel about it.
What I was thinking is, like you said, it's not only that his name is not a traditionally Italian American, I believe it's Ahmed or something like that.
Yeah.
But he also mentions, I was no longer 17. I was 48-year-old, and then whatever the name is. And I guess the implication is just that bouncers didn't care in the 70s.
I mean, Mike,
I guess so.
We saw later in the episode, we see him when he was 17. He pulled off 48 very well.
That's actually a really good point. He hasn't aged a day.
That's true.
Yeah.
He looked terrible at the time, and he hasn't aged a day.
Yeah.
Now
I don't think he pulled off Middle Eastern is the thing.
No.
And certainly not a holy man. But I don't know.
No, holy men don't listen to disco. That's the big problem.
We've got to talk about that fucking Bee Gees sound alike that they put in there.
Yeah, we do. We got to do a breakdown of that.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. I also thought it was a weird gag that the bathing suit was made of cardboard, or it looked like that because it held its shape.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know if that was supposed to be a bit or not, but it was. Yeah, I didn't think it was that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what the implication of it being so crusty was, but there's only a couple things it could have been.
we know it's his. It was his lucky car, so
That's
maybe
true.
that was lucky blanket.
Oh, good God.
Jesus.
Anyway.
Wow, I think that was the first awkward silence on Everybody Loves Raymond. With 4 people, nonetheless.
Oh, yeah.
I think we were just giving you the space to really settle into that.
To settle into the discovery, let the image ferment.
Oh boy.
Ugh, ferment.
Yeah, not a great word for that.
But yeah. If there's no other thoughts on that, Frank reveals that he is selling the car. He's got an offer for $800, which is not bad for a 25-year-old car. I mean, inflation being what it is, even still, like my car, and this will tell you a lot about me, listener. My car is a 2007 Ford Focus, and It is the quote that I received from an unidentified, sell us your car and we'll deliver you a new one, heavenly car service, Buddhist, was about $300.
Wow.
So the fact that this 72-year-old Valiant, not 72-year-old, 25-year-old is fetching $800 is pretty impressive. But Ray sort of seems crestfallen that they're selling it, so Frank offers Ray the opportunity to buy it. Deborah doesn't want the car. She wants a minivan. But Ray is going back and forth with Frank a little. They haggle, go from $800 down to $750. Deborah counters with $200. And then I thought the little car salesman bit where Frank goes to consult with Marie was pretty funny, but they settle on $462.25.
Yes. I looked up all of the first price and the inflation calculator. The original price, the $800, comes out to about $1,500 today, and they got it for approximately $850, which I thought, that's
not bad.
I don't know.
I mean,
it's not
for
bad.
Frank, that's a lot of purchasing power, as we see in a later scene.
Well,
He spends it well.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on this scene, Brian? Did it bring back memories of buying a car from your father, or?
At this point of the episode, I was like, "Oh boy, I got a bad one."
This premise is weak.
I thought they were going to be like, "Ooh, Deborah's a good negotiator," but how can she be a good negotiator as being a housewife, right?
Right.
I thought that's where they were going, and I'm like, "Oh boy, this is not good." Because you have some episodes like that, especially early on in Everybody Loves Raymond. Like, "Oh, wait, she has business skills? How's that possible?" Which I'm glad it wasn't that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, in terms of the car, listen, anything you can get for that price, go for it. That's my motto. So yeah, I mean that's really
has that
really
served you well in life? Do you have a lot of cars?
Well, I don't see a lot of cars for that price, but I have a lot of random shit around my apartment. So
Same. Well, I mean, we've got a lot of random shit around the Barone zone, of course. We actually, and we're trying to keep this on the down low, but we have the 72 Valiant in the Barone zone, and we, turned it into sort of, Ray used it as a makeout mobile. We use it as a makeout stationary.
that's amazing. That is amazing.
Is that why you always hang out by the stationery?
All right, listen.
Yeah, Mike, you're often, I'll try to go in there, but you're already in there in repose. And, I mean, the first times it was a little awkward, but now I'm just kind of used to seeing you all out there.
But you're welcome to join. That's all I'm saying.
I appreciate the invitation.
I love the love that you guys have for each other. It's just so amazing. And just to be in the Barone zone and experience that is it's just a beautiful thing.
This place certainly has a vibe, doesn't it? You certainly feel a certain way when you're in here.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question about the car? Because I'm very curious about this. Does it still only play music from the 70s?
It only plays that song. It's stuck in the tape deck. So, I mean,
Gotcha.
Hearing it in this context was extremely triggering. I mean, I associate that with a very specific angle on Mike's naked body, so it's hard for me to
Great
see
image,
that.
Thank you.
Well, his camera's not on, so you can just imagine.
That's what makes it better. I figured that the two of you are in the car right now, podcasting, which is awesome.
We're broadcasting live from the 72 Valley.
If there's ever like a couple of minutes where you don't hear from either of us, you can only guess what's happened.
We're playing. Yeah.
You're playing the tape. You're gently sliding it over to heat and then jamming it back to cold. I love details about the base reality. But yeah, so they sell the car to Frank. Or, nope. Yeah, but they sell the car to Ray for $462.25. And we go to our next scene. Ray comes home. Nobody's home. I thought it was, I don't want to say funny. I thought I was impressed by Ray's ability to act disappointed and then transition that into thrilled. I thought, we've seen little sprinklings of good acting from Ray, and I thought this was decent. Maybe not acting, emoting. I don't know. But Deborah comes back with the kids in kind of a huff. The car broke down, and she was trying to, do all of the errands. And Ray's first response to her saying that the car broke down is, "What'd you do to it?" And I think Deborah has a couple of nice 1-2 punches here where she responds to that with, "I tried to drive it, Ray." And later on, Ray says, "When you turn the key, what'd it sound like?" And she says, "The rustling of divorce papers." I was like, snaps for Deborah. It's sort of like this audience, the studio audience, loves when Marie claps back at Frank, but I feel like they don't give Deborah enough for clapping back at Ray.
They don't. And I think because, at least, especially back when the show was on, I think the target audience was like the husband of the family, I think more than anyone. And I feel like and we've talked about this at length many times, but Deborah's perspective is the secondary one a lot of the times. And when watching this scene, for me at least, I think it's important to be okay, I got to remember she just spent a lot of time in a car that wasn't working in the rain with 3 kids. I'd be really pissed as well. And if you're delivering these snapbacks as well as she is, it's impressive.
It is.
Yeah. She reveals that she had to get it towed. She took it to the mechanic. Sunk cost, we're now at $762.25 with the new fuel pump that they had to put in. But Ray declares that despite the problems with the car, he can fix it, and he doesn't want to return it to Frank. I feel like once we find out why Ray loves the car so much, his insistence that they, even though it's an obviously terrible car, his insistence that they keep it is gross, right? Once we find out why, it's costing his family money and it's causing his wife actual harm, but he's like, "Ooh, I fucked in it. I have to keep the car."
Quite literally. And I thought that was going to be one of these, how can I put it? Deborah thinks that and she's jealous, but that's not really the reason. But it's not that. It is literally what you said. He wants to keep it because he fucked in that car. And if we can go back for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
One of the most fascinating things about the episode to me was this moment when she comes in and says this whole incident happened. It's so different to what we do today. Could you imagine getting into a car accident or having car trouble and not texting your partner, right?
Yeah,
and just
totally.
showing up at home and just being guess what happened to me today? That would never happen in a texting society. So it's whoa,
yeah,
that's cool. But yeah. Sorry, just
that's a really great point. That's a lot of, that makes me think of when we talked about Frank the writer, how Frank typed up, or had Marie type up a whole multi-page document with his thoughts on, car alarms and shit, when now the legs are completely cut out from that scene because he would just tweet all of his or post all of his thoughts on Truth Social. But yeah, same thing here. Like, I don't know if it fully undercuts this scene, but
no.
It certainly it wouldn't happen like this today, and that's one of the interesting things to think about watching a show that's almost 30 years old at this point.
It's a stamp in time.
Pardon?
It's a stamp in time.
I'm glad we got that clean. No, you're right, Alex. It is. It totally is. Where were we? Okay, so yeah, go ahead, Mike.
That, like, what I was thinking when she was recounting the story is not only is this car, like, they're mentioning that they want to save up for like a good minivan down the road, but this car is, number one, not only costing them now basically the buying price, right? Because now they've basically spent close to $800 on it, but it's an old enough car. Give it 2 days, they're gonna have to put more money into it, and it's causing a lot more stress. So it's just, to me, it's like, it's really just a net negative. I don't see any positive coming out of it other than, as we mentioned, Ray and his desperate need to cling to the days of nostalgia when we'll get there of the gross the fucking
Oh, that just reminded me when you said they had to get work done on. I didn't call out that they put a new fuel pump in it. #pumped. But yeah, no, good point. So we cut to our next scene, and Frank and Marie are in the kitchen with the bread maker. This scene, I realized, this stands out to me if I go back into my memory palace and look at all of the scenes I remember from Everybody Loves Raymond. I definitely remembered this scene, but now, being an adult and knowing about the folk tale of John Henry, I think it's a little more clever than I first realized. It's the whole man versus machine thing. Now, does Marie die at the end of this from exhaustion? No. But the basic premise is the same.
Was anyone else really bummed that they didn't like finish off this B story? Like, I wanted to know who won. Like,
That's true.
wanted Frank's bread to be done fast, but it wasn't good, or he didn't like it. They just dropped it after this scene. I was really sad about that.
That would have been a good revisiting for the hot clothes too.
That seems like a very Raymond structure too, that it would be like Frank's bread is done first, and at first we think Frank wins, but then he tastes it and it's shit, and then he tastes Marie's handmade Italian bread and he's like, I better go back to Sears or something and return it. Like, that makes a lot of sense, but
So this is what I love about the sitcom format, or just the idea of it. And I really, truly believe we'll never be in this era again. I know they still make sitcoms on CBS or something, but they're writing this show and they have these ideas, and that might have been a call the day of, they have a week to shoot it, and they're like, yeah, let's just cut the end of the bread thing. The car thing's cooler. Let's devote a little bit more time to that. And let's do it. And they never thought that any of these things were going to have this kind of rewatchability. I know certain things were in syndication, but not to a level of people podcasting about it and decided to dedicate years of their life to it. So the idea,
we'll see.
Oh, good.
But the idea that some guy snap decision on set that day was just like, fuck it, And now we're talking about it like we never got the conclusion of the bread. I'm a nerd, but I love it.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's, the time constraint too. Like, you see Netflix shows now, like Stranger Things, it's still set up like it's a series, but they went back and forth between 48 minutes, 90 minutes, 56 minutes, like the 22-minute constraint. I don't know if Raymond would have been a better show if it really had room to stretch out, but I think we could have gotten 30 more seconds for the end of this scene.
That's
all they needed, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
But I wanted to call out, so Marie's competing with the bread maker. The stakes of the contest, as Frank says, is if I win, I'm getting rid of Marie says, if I win, I'm getting rid of this stupid bread maker. Frank says, same if I win. And this gets an applause break from the audience, which, you know, very cruel of the audience. It's an excellent joke construction, but the sentiment, oh my God. Anyway, so Deborah comes in. She is trying to tell Frank about all the problems with the car. And this is when he describes his little tricks for getting it to work. I noticed that Frank is drinking O'Doul's, the non-alcoholic beer. And knowing how fond this show is of their paid promotional sponsor, Canada Dry, I went and looked up, this is how much time I have, I went and looked up if in 1997 Canada Dry and O'Doul's were owned by the same parent company. They're not. Frank is just drinking an O'Doul's. I'm going to cut that fact out because as I was saying it, I realized that's not an interesting thing to say.
I was interested in it. Surprise,
Thank
surprise.
you.
I have a podcast. I'm also a beer guy. I was like, oh, duels? What? That's not on brand for him. Wait,
It really
and then I was
isn't.
going to ask,
Mhm.
is he a recovering alcoholic at all in this series?
I wonder. I think, do you guys know? Because I feel also like it's on brand for Frank to enjoy a beer, but I don't remember.
And by the way, you can drink O'Doul's and not be a recovering alcoholic. I want to put that out there. But he seems like a guy who would laugh at the guy drinking the O'Doul's,
Yeah.
right?
For sure.
That's not beer, you know, like that
Yeah.
would be his reaction. So it was surprising to me.
I think it would be like a situation where I bet, honestly, Frank would laugh at a guy for drinking wine as well. Like,
It's true.
if he was hanging out with Deborah's not Deborah's father-in-law, Deborah's father, you know, who's supposed to be this hoity-toity guy from Connecticut, and he ordered like a red wine, and Frank's like, red wine? Why wouldn't they just drink beer? But apparently Frank doesn't drink beer. Or at least maybe this is taking place at 9 a.m. for all we know.
That would be on brand. Like,
Yes.
oh, you know, I'm not supposed to drink before 11 a.m. So,
But I
this
like
is-
the taste.
yes.
Are you guys still on the line, Mike and Alex? All right, let's plow ahead. So, yeah, Frank's drinking O'Doul's. But Deborah's asking if she can return the car and sell it back to them. And Marie asks if Ray knows that she's doing this. And she reveals that Ray does not know. At this moment, Robert enters. And this was one of the... I think all of Robert's scenes in this episode were really funny. He comes in, awkward silence falls immediately, and he has the line, is this about me?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I love this running bit. I don't know if this is the first time it happens, but the "is this about me" thing appears definitely throughout the first season, definitely in multiple other seasons, and I just love that whole thing of everyone shutting up when Robert's in the room, and he's just constantly waiting for an intervention or something like that from even though he's doing nothing wrong, just like, oh God, what have they got on me now?
Like everything quiets down and he has to like embrace that he just barged in at a delicate moment. I also have to say, for the last like 5 minutes, I wanted to interject about the beer.
Go ahead.
My theory is that Peter Boyle just grabbed a can from the crafts table and just brought it on set with him.
He seems like the type.
Yeah.
This is going to be my prop for this scene. All right, go ahead, Peter. But Robert reveals that the car is Ray's old makeout mobile. That's where he first got lucky in what he started to call Lucky with Lisa Constantine.
What a name.
What a name, right? What a powerful name. And that's Deborah. We sort of see on her face the realization that Ray wants the car because that's where he first fucked, and I don't know, it gets his motor running. But I thought Robert's closing to this scene where maybe I've said too much and he sort of slinks out was pretty funny.
It was.
This is sort of like that classic like first couple episodes Robert where he's very meek and just sort of cowardly, very small man in a very big body. But I thought this was a really good scene. I mean, a better scene than the rest of the, maybe the best scene in the episode.
Probably.
for me.
Second best scene. You're forgetting something later.
Yes.
Gotcha. Can I just say that Robert,
Hmm.
I love his development through the series. I mean, it's not the greatest development in a TV show, obviously, but like we get a lot of episodes that focus on him more later, and that's awesome. It's kind of jarring to rewatch this first season, and as you guys have mentioned, where he's just this sort of one-liner in certain episodes or two lines here or there, and I was happy to see him get such a cool, prominent scene, and then one later when he returns, and it was very on brand. So go Brad Garrett and go Robert.
Go Robert. We're Team Deborah on this show. We're Team Robert, I think, because every time pretty much he's come on screen, he's either done something funny or something incredible with his superpowers. So he is just an amazing man.
Judge Deborah about how Robert's the secret protagonist of this show.
That was our first one.
Yeah, that was our very first deliberation. I believe I ruled against you, but more, and I can admit this now, out of general dislike and partiality.
I pieced that together too. But yeah, I mean, he is the only one in this show that really shows basically any character development outside of the children. So,
Yeah. So we cut to Ray. He's in the garage. He's polishing the car. And Deborah enters. Hey, new set, right? Garage.
New set, guys. Da, 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 da. Just like a running counter.
And they use it a couple times in this episode. I think it's very well set decorated. Lots of garbage in the back, a bicycle hanging up. I'm just thrilled to see it. I love when they invest in a new set.
Yeah.
But, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to... Go ahead, Alex. You say your piece.
Very little clutter for a garage.
True, well organized.
Yeah, I was going to say it was almost like I could smell this thing, because I've been in garages like this. I could smell the dust and the particle and like the pieces. It was well done. That's what I'm trying to say, Adam.
It brought you back to your time in the garage.
Does the Barone Zone not have a garage?
The Barone Zone... Go ahead, Mike. You describe the garage.
I was going to say, we have we have the car, okay? We have the car in a garage-like room. But
we brought it up using the service elevator. The building doesn't have a garage.
It's a weird garage.
Because what you have to know about the skyscraper that the Barone Zone is the penthouse of is that floors 1 through 98... Well, that's not true. Floors 2 through 98 are vacant. And then floor 99 is occupied by us. Floor 1 has a Dwayne Reed. But there's really no call for parking. So no, is the short answer.
Good to know. Figured I'd ask.
And we never will. But yes, we did. The room that the car is in is a recreation of this set. So in that sense, we... Yeah, the room that the car is in is a recreation of the garage. But Ray's polishing the car, and where Ray and Deborah are going back and forth with some double entendres about the car. And it... So to me, those sounded very not clever. And I wondered if any of you guys found them as scintillating as I think we were supposed to. Because, I mean, they seemed very surface to me.
I mean, I think they were easy, but I didn't think like they were bad. You know what I mean? It just sounded like, I mean, it's the classic, you're talking about the same thing. I thought it was, fine innuendos. I didn't think anything more than that.
The last one got me. The last one made me chuckle. I don't remember what it was.
Well,
what about Brian? Did you have thoughts on that?
This will tie into some of my thoughts later, but my parents both, they met in Queens, grew up in Queens. So, I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, so not Long Island, but a similar thing, right? And Ray and Deborah are like the same age of my parents. And when I was watching this show, my parents were that age. So it was uncomfortable then as it is now to see them in sexual situations. I'm talking about Ray and Deborah.
Right, of course.
Theoretically, my parents, but they're no longer together. But so it'll be even more uncomfortable now. But regardless, so these double entendres still creep me out. That's a long way of saying that.
No, they're definitely, I don't know what the intention, I mean, I guess to be funny, but it's more creepy. But Deborah reveals that she knows Lisa Constantine is the reason Ray wanted the car. And Ray very quickly, I think, pivots, and he delivers this monologue about the car representing freedom. He used to take it to Jones Beach and to not Citi Field, Shea Stadium. I don't know why my brain updated that as I was about to say Shea Stadium. But that sort of, I don't know if it convinces Deborah, but it gets her to drop it, and she's sort of like, okay, Ray, I see that this car is bigger than just Lisa and fucking in it. But we cut to the next scene, and we see that Deborah is really not that okay with it, or at least she has trouble getting over it.
I was just going to say, before we get to that incredible moment of cinema, I do need to take a step back. The monologue about the car reminded me a lot about his monologue of the Mickey Mantle autographed ball.
True.
And it felt like it didn't feel as genuine. I don't know why, because it was basically the same dialogue, the same intonation, but it just, I don't know. It feels like every time Ray is confronted about something, or some object doesn't go his way, he gives some kind of deep, heavy-hearted spiel about it, and I don't know. It's an interesting note that has now come up twice in a single season. So I thought that was.
I really thought it apart, Mike. I mean, like, I get what you're saying, but like when he talked about the car, like, it made me change my mind about car. And I do believe up until this point, Ray wasn't just thinking about the car as like the time he made out with Lisa Constantine, because again we see his memory of it, and it was not perfect. But like I think, like, knowing his family and knowing that his car was the one way to kind of get away from everything for a while, I believe that he saw that car as like, his ability to kind of just escape everything. And maybe he felt that if he lost that car, he loses the ability to kind of like be free for a little while. That's kind of what I got from it.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that's the idea behind it. And I think maybe at first Ray does feel that way about it. And then by the end of the episode, he sort of realizes that, because of the Lisa memory, it doesn't just mean that anymore in his life where he is now. But, I think that you can either believe Ray or think that he's a sociopath and he's lying to his wife. And I'm inclined to think it's the latter, but there might be a little bit of the former in there. Anything to say on that, Brian?
No, I mean, I think I'm in lockstep with that. It's I love these little moments in sitcoms because I feel like, wow, this is going to sound so condescending. I've never written for a sitcom. I wish I did, but I love when they're like, oh, this is a good chance to like, get something meaty in here, right? Yeah. Like it doesn't have to be joke. Like let's really tell them how we feel about this, and it's nice.
Yeah, this show has a couple moments like that where the sort of the tenor of it drops, and then we have like a sincere moment, and then it picks back up. Usually they come out of it with a joke. I don't know if they really did that on this one. I think it sort of ended with a whimper. But Deborah in the next scene, and it's sort of like am I wrong? It's like a crossfade into her getting the kids ready to take them somewhere in this car. And as she's about to open the driver's side door, she enters this hallucination dream sequence of Ray and Lisa in the car. And what I give this show credit for, daring to do a dream sequence at all. And I thought it, in terms of the staging of it, I thought it was good. I thought the way that it was just the car on the darkened set. It looked pretty cool. But so Ray, in all of his 70s glory, is sitting in the driver's seat next to Lisa. It was played by Kristen Bauer Van Straten.
Of
A little
course.
bit about her. She did a million sitcoms. Seinfeld she did a 2.5 Men. She's done, not as many as what's his name who played Garvin, but she's been in a lot of things. But probably best known for being on True Blood for like 70 episodes and for being in Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion.
Oh, wow.
Her most recent credit, though, was a podcast. So I feel like maybe if we had looked her up earlier, we could have gotten her. But we're happy to have you here, Brian. But unfortunately, you've never kissed Ray, so we can't talk about that.
Unless you want to share something with
Yeah,
us.
way to spoil my story. Jeez.
Oh,
no.
sorry. That was your big moment that you were building.
I have never kissed Ray. I have seen Ray in real life, though.
Okay, we're sidelining the episode because
Yeah, hold on a second.
we've got a legitimate Ray.
Exciting.
What I'm going to do is we're going to say Ray sighting now, and then I'm going to plug in a pun that I think of later, and then we're all going to, let's get us all laughing. I'm not going to do that. That's too much work. But a legitimate Ray sighting. That's our first time on this show. Tell us, set the scene, tell us everything.
Oh, you're going to love this. It's a double whammy, and I just remembered it. So thank you for jogging my memory. I don't know why I'm making out with Ray. It made me think of this. But I was in New Orleans. My brother went to Tulane. He was graduating, and we're just walking around the French Quarter, like me and my family. And who do I see in a corner listening to, like, one of those good New Orleans jazz bands? Ray Romano and Brad Garrett together. And I'm like, wait, is that Ray and Brad Garrett? And me and my brother like looked at each other like, oh my God, that's so cool. I think I might have taken a picture of them. I'll look in my phone and see if I, like, from afar, like a
That
creeper.
would be amazing. I love the idea of them sitting and appreciating New Orleans jazz.
Standing in the corner, really, and kind of like getting into it. Like it was amazing now that I look back. Yeah. So thank you for jogging my memory.
That is so
I
fascinating.
appreciate that you approached the situation like a nature photographer approached.
I can't disturb this.
I can't disturb it. I need to capture this.
I mean, to see one of them, cool, right? But together, like, oh, they actually hang out. Like, they're actually friends. Maybe they're actually brothers in real life, and they never told us. Who knows? It was just a glory to see.
That's
Makes me
amazing.
very happy. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
I feel like
a great place to share it here, right?
Yeah, where else? Honestly, who else
Really?
would care?
Very good point.
I feel like seeing Ray really getting into some jazz is almost as good, if not better, than making out with him. I mean, clearly he was getting as much pleasure there as he could have gotten in the 72 Valiant. But thank you for sharing that. Back to the episode, though. So really from the jump, this dream sequence is kind of a nightmare. Ray is, I mean, I don't even... if you haven't watched the episode, you just have to go and watch it because it is...
Oh my God.
It's almost indescribable.
Oh my God. I do like that. Don't get me wrong. I know, I wasn't expecting de-aging CGI. I wasn't expecting
The Irishman.
But like the fact that they put any makeup on him, they didn't do anything like
Just
that.
the
They put
wig.
a shirt, slapped a wig on, and called it a day. I thought that was really funny.
I felt they leaned into it,
Yeah,
Mhm.
which I liked. I liked it a lot.
So they're sort of in the car and it's getting very steamy and Ray is making her laugh and they're flirting. They're seducing each other with white people Spanish, which is very uncomfortable. But this is where we first hear that Bee Gees sound alike, and a lot of shows at the time, and I'd be interested to know if anyone can confirm this, would have like actual songs synced into them, but then when they released them on DVD, would not be able to pay for the licensing, so they would have to replace them with sound-alikes. I wonder if they actually had Staying Alive in this scene.
Oh, that's a really good point. I didn't even think of that, because you're so right. Recently, I would say like in the last 6 months, there was huge controversy in sitcom land because Dawson's Creek went on Netflix with this bullshit intro song.
What?
And people were so mad that Netflix and all their money bought the Paula Cole song and put it into the syndicated episodes again. So this is so random, but I was on a podcast, a Tom Hanks podcast once for the show Bosom Buddies. Are you guys familiar with that one? And really it has a sound alike, but a Billy Joel song as the intro. And they could not afford that. So they had this rando song on the DVD, which I was watching for the show, made it unbearable. So the original music really, really matters, but who the hell in like a random Raymond episode, do you think Peacock or whoever is really going to pay for like, let's pay for the BG for this little moment? So I didn't even think about that, but you might be 100% correct on that one.
Yeah, I know that speaking of Mad About You, which we mentioned earlier, the reason that took so long to come out on DVD was, and the same with WKRP, I think, like those didn't get released for a long time because they had to like go back and forth with a million different places to get the music licensing. It's a really weird little issue, but yeah, I don't think Peacock is shelling out for. They're not contacting Barry Gibb. Please let us use Staying Alive. Watch this man, this disgusting man in a mullet wig.
It doesn't move.
Yeah. But yeah, so that reverie ends, and we
This
cut.
also-
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this our first view of like, because we see what really happened later on with the Ray flashback? Is this just how Deborah views Ray as like this kind of bad boy, like kind of sexy? By the way,
That's
we get
a really good point.
yeah.
She
Wait,
sees
like-
him making her laugh. She sees him being like cool and hot and Spanish and all the things.
Maybe that's use him. Like maybe that's how she sees him when he was like coming on to her. Maybe that's how it makes her feel.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like it's just interesting. Also, yeah, we see him being a sexual being with a very, very long.
Gross way to describe.
I don't know.
It's already gross. And then you have to bring that in.
It lingered for just like a solid second too long.
No, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
But the point on in terms of how Deborah views him, I think is so spot on. Plug again, but I host a teen film podcast, so I think about high school a lot, and we talk about nostalgia, and not always because we do modern films too.
Mm-hmm.
But I've thought about this idea a lot. Like, would the person you were in high school, would like those people date you even now? You could be the most amazing person in the world, but they might still see your high school self, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that like I can speak for myself, right? Like, or maybe not with my wife, but I think a lot of couples, like if they knew their who their partner was in high school, for better or worse, they might maybe think twice. Not think twice.
Yeah.
That sounds so mean, but like it's totally different, right?
For
so
sure.
like Deborah's fantasy, before I knew that we were going to get the reality of it, I was creeped out because I'm like, Ray definitely was not like that in high school. But seeing it from her point of view, like I'm sure Ray imagines Deborah a lot cooler in high school as well, or whatever. So I thought that was actually kind of clever and cool.
That's such a good point. Yeah, nothing to add on that. But yes, such a good point. Ray, we cut to the upstairs. Ray is in the bedroom putting on his shoes. Presumably he had just jerked off, because we know Ray must take off his shoes before he has good old sex. Continuity. But Ray enters and she throws the keys at him. She wants to trade cars because she's skeeved out by the history that Ray has with it. And Ray, I thought I don't know. It was pre 9/11. The car bomb bit was kind of funny to me. But later, next scene, Ray is in the car, sort of, I don't know, just enjoying being in it, and the Bee Gees sound-alike comes on, which, highly unlikely in the real world, but I guess it was a huge hit at the time, and now it's just a staple on 70s radio. But Ray enters into this reverie, and we see what really happened between him and Lisa, and we see that he is not the sort of 70s hunk that he was in Deborah's imagination. He is the Ray we would expect him to be. And Lisa is also not, she's got braces. She's not the sort of confident, flirty woman, and she doesn't even really seem happy to be here. But the disco song comes on. Lisa, you're canceled, because she turns her nose up at it and says, "It's so queer." And Lisa...
Shocked.
Did she say that?
Yeah.
Homophobic.
Shocked.
Yeah.
And we see Ray failing to speak truth to power, and he immediately caves in. Ray would have gone on... I feel like Ray would have gone along with a lot of things. He's that sort of man, but
Agreed.
yeah. Although, I wonder what this scene would be like if Ray was like, "Hey, that's homophobic."
I feel like
yeah.
secretly a watershed moment in Ray's life, where if he took the other turn, he would be an activist version of Everybody Loves Raymond.
Sliding doors.
Yeah.
Raymond was a horny high school kid with a girl in his car. She could have said anything, and he would have not bat an eye.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. I went back a couple times for whatever reason, and Peacock, I've tweeted at you and you haven't fixed this. I can't get the subtitles on my Peacock on my main TV in my living room. So I was like, what else could he be saying? Is he saying that word? Or is she saying that word? Is it serious? And I'm like, holy hell, because this isn't the show that honestly pushed the envelope in those kind of ways, right? So to have that here, it was sort of shocking.
It wasn't in any sort of context of challenging it. It was just oh, this is a word that we would use in here. It was just, it must have been honestly right before it flipped, and they were like, "Oh, you can't be openly homophobic unless the context is appropriate for that." That's fucked up.
Friends is a show that gets criticized, and rightfully so, for having a lot of homophobic moments. Never did they say that word in Friends, right? The only shows that were using that word were HBO shows. Mm-hmm. So it was just, I don't know. It was jarring to see in this format.
It was really jarring. But in general, once we move past that, once we're jarred, we become unjarred, and we see the scene play out. I thought, the construction of this is good. I thought it was pretty funny to see the real version of it after seeing Deborah's after seeing Deborah's imagination. But the thing that really made me laugh out loud, they're being awkward, and they're she asks Ray to chew gum, which was pretty funny. But the thing that really made me laugh out loud was Robert showing up. Just the appearance of Robert made me laugh. I don't know about the afro. I don't think that's Robert's natural hair. So I wonder about whether that's appropriate or not. But I don't know. It was the 90s, but it was the 70s. So, I don't know. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty funny little set piece, especially as Ray comes out of his reverie and Deborah's just standing there watching him, presumably, heavily breathing as he's imagining his moment of glory. But yeah, I like this.
I thought it was great. I loved the scene. I liked the bit where Robert got his hair caught in the window. Mm-hmm. I know it's a throwaway gag, but it still got a chuckle out of me. I thought this was.
And then he's adjusting it as he comes out of the window. It's very funny.
It's definitely a wig.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know it was a wig in the scene, but I feel like
the
even
character.
Yeah, the character Robert was wearing a wig.
Yeah.
That does.
I have a question for you experts.
Mhm.
Do we believe that this was an accurate fantasy? Or do we believe that like this is the ideal situation for Raymond? Like it was even worse than this perhaps in real life? Like that's what I was trying to figure
I
out.
think that the latter is certainly possible, especially because we learned in episode 6, Frank writing about his son Roy, not. I don't remember what he said. Something about him being insanely awkward as a young kid. It could definitely have been worse than this, and this is Ray's rosy picture of it. But yeah, no, I definitely think that's possible. What do you guys think?
It's interesting because, like, my instinct is to say no, just because I'd imagine if you're painting an ideal picture, you wouldn't get your gum caught in the girl's retainer, right? Like, I feel like that would
Maybe that's his kink.
God. Maybe he does go for gum later in the scene, but
He can't perform without it.
the gum.
The chewing motion.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to rule it out. It didn't occur to me until this moment, but like, you're 100% right. That is entirely possible. That, like, I don't know, maybe the car went on fire back then too. It's always possible.
I don't know. I think maybe a little, but probably I'm going to lean towards no, because Ray was still looking back at it fondly, and it felt like he was looking at it pretty uncensored. And like, even though it was like a messy memory, I feel like he was still kind of like, looking back fondly about it. Like, I mean, I go to my own experience. I've had a lot of not perfect moments as well, but I still look back at them fondly. I mean, I never did exactly what happened in that scene, but like, I feel like it's a stand-in for a lot of moments in my life that could have gone better.
I kind of like to think that it is Ray embellishing it, and also that Robert is still in his ideal version of it. It's very sweet. But they come out of the reverie, and then they go into the kitchen, and Deborah basically lays it all out for him that it's weird that he wants to keep this car. And I feel like pretty quickly, without a lot of, rat-a-tat between them, he decides to get rid of it, and they have kind of a sweet moment, and they hug about it. And Deborah then... who can understand what makes Deborah horny? It's funerals. It's funerals to her birthday to all sorts of things. But Ray admitting that he should get rid of the car gets her all riled up, and she essentially suggests that they go get it on. They go into the garage, and this is not the same song, I don't think. I think it's a sound-alike of Superstition by Stevie Wonder, which they also couldn't get. But another sexy 70s song starts playing, and the car, as they're starting to, fuck, the car starts smoking, and... out of nowhere, Robert comes in and sprays the entire garage down with the fire extinguisher, which was a really funny entrance. And it's sort of, I like how this mirrors him dropping in on Ray and Lisa. And the way that he just awkwardly departs after this is really funny to me. Like, I feel like Brad Garrett is really good at playing that awkward silence. And then as he leaves, Ray and Deborah, they complete, and they still fuck. And you know what? That's another notch on the sex counter.
Gonna add to the cum counter. Is that enough to?
Technically two.
Technically two. Where was the first one?
Well,
we don't. Well, maybe. I hope not. For Lisa's sake, that was.
I think there's 3, because remember we got that stiff pair of shorts in the beginning. So
Yeah, you're right.
That was more than 3.
Yeah, that was several years.
Can I give a quick update to something earlier in the episode? So my wife walked into the room and handed me her phone, and I swear it was going to say, "How much longer are you going to talk about Everybody Loves Raymond? I would like to go to bed." But it was not. It was actually a photo from New Orleans that she found
Oh my God.
of Ray and Brad Garrett. And it's not when they were listening and jamming to the music, unfortunately, but it's right after. And Ray is like, appears to be looking at his pants. And and Brad Garrett is advising him in some way. So if you can send this to me, Nicole, and I'll send it to the guys. So thank you.
That's number 4 on the Come Counter. That's awesome. That's great.
Brian, with permission, I'd like to put that on the cover art of this episode, so all of our listeners can get it.
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
So, listener, look at the podcast art a little bit closer for this episode, and one of the picture frames will be the photo that Brian is talking about.
And
Send
we'll
them
also
an
put it
email.
on Instagram at Baronzo. But yeah, no, awesome. I'm so glad that got resolved.
Yeah, me too.
So finally, we go to our hot close for this episode, opposite of the cold open. Ray and Deborah are in bed. Who knows? Maybe they fucked again right before this. We don't have enough information. But he asks her about, because now they're uneven, she knows about his first time. He asks her about her first time. And damn, Deborah, you are a freak. She says she denies she refuses to tell him on the basis that you're never going to want to go into a supermarket ever again. Damn, Deborah.
Yeah,
That's a good line, but to criticize her, Ray already doesn't want to go to a supermarket.
That's true.
valid point. Valid point.
Well, jeez. I mean, I don't even... There are so many things that could be, and if there is a reboot, and I know there won't be, but if there is, let's do sort of a different take, a response episode to this episode, where we see Deborah in the supermarket. I'm so curious. You know what? Actually, I think if we go back to the Raymond section of fanfiction.net, I think we'll be able to find out
We'll
there.
probably find it. Yeah.
Look for the fanfic called Cashier Polishing Melons.
Good God.
That's pretty funny, though.
That is funny, yeah.
But that's our episode. That's season 1, episode 15, The Car. It's time to rate Ray on our patented barometer, his performance as a husband, son, father, lover, brother, any other permutation of Ray that you can think of. It's a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the great TV dads of sitcom history, such as Danny Tanner, aforementioned, and 1 being men who actively harm their families, like Don Draper and Walter White. Brian, on a scale of 1 to 10, where is Ray coming in for you as a man this episode?
So I gotta say, it's pretty low because this is something I guess we didn't really touch on. Well, we did a little bit, right? Like, he makes his wife drive this car that could literally kill her and the kids at any instance, right? Like, the first day it craps out, he knows all about this car. And yes, he's done bad things in there. We know that. But the fact that he's putting his whole family in a death trap and he's like excited when he comes home and they're not there. Woo, I'm going to have to give him a 3 or a 2 or something.
Let's call it a 2.5. That's a very good point.
Oh, wow.
Mike, where are you coming in?
I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of didn't consider the fact that, and I absolutely should have, but I didn't consider the fact that this car is definitely not passing inspection anytime soon. So I'm actually going to, I don't know if I'll go quite as low. I think I'll give him a 3.5. I think I'll give him a 3.5 this episode. And just my rationale being, I think it is sentimental to him. I don't think it was entirely him trying to hold on to this memory of his ex-girlfriend. But at the same time, number 1, put Deborah in a bit of an awkward situation, to say the least. And number 2, as Brian put out, things could have gone very bad very quickly. Specifically to hold on to this Well, these memories will incorporate most of his freedom at that point too, but still, yeah.
All right. Alex, where are you coming in?
Okay. I'm gonna have to explain myself for this one. 6.
Ooh.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, I thought I was running a little low, but apparently not. So, this is also one of the first times I decided to decide my rating way in advance. So, Brian, what you said about the car actually did get to me, and I did lower him from my original score for that reason. But also thinking about it kind of in similar terms, like, and this may be like a little more like specific to me because like I know Limbrook, and like I have a very specific picture of it in my head, but like Deborah, like her errands take her around town. She's not going like incredibly far in this car. So like maybe like a mile or two at most at one time. Like even when the car breaks down, she's only at the supermarket, so she's not terribly far away. And then aside from that, I give Ray such a high score because throughout the episode, first off, in the beginning, we see him being a good dad, hanging out with these kids, reading, tackling, mind-blowing phenomenons with his kids. And then throughout it, I just never really saw any point when he was particularly like a bad like husband. Like when he was with his like when he offers to take the car off Frank's hand in the beginning, he was kind of like fighting back a little bit here and there. And then Deborah eventually got on board to like say, oh, we'll try to lowball him. And then from there, they worked as a team. So I thought that was great, that they were going to get a deal on it and work together. When the car breaks down initially, Ray does not show any concern, which, that is bad. But when like Deborah said she got a part fixed, like, in my mind, that's like, okay, now the problem's solved. The car's fine. And I guess that's kind of what Ray was thinking as well. But like even throughout the rest of the episode, his concerns seemed, like reasonable. Like I felt like he wanted to keep the car for sentimental facts, for, saving money facts, which, he has been, pulled down for in the past for not, cutting corners when he could for saving money. And then also eventually when he realizes, how much Deborah this was bothering her, he agrees to, junk it right away. And actually, even before that, when Deborah was feeling uncomfortable with it, she asked to switch cars. He accepted, no problem. I just felt like he was a very non-confrontational husband. Like he just was like, he was here for it. He was like, okay. I don't think I'm explaining myself very good.
No, I think we understand what you're saying.
Okay, well that's kind of my thought process behind the grade I gave him. I thought he did a good job with the situation that was presented to him compared to other episodes. And sorry, that was just like a 10-minute rant.
No.
Adam, go.
I hear your point, and I think I'm going to give him a 4 because I hear your point about him. Sometimes Ray is really stubborn with these things and almost like willfully not solving the problem. And I see that in this episode, anything that Deborah wants to change, after he makes the initial purchase of the car, he says, I'll fix it. He says, we can switch cars. And then eventually he says we can get rid of it. So, for that aspect, I will give him a little bit of credit. But the car, first of all, the purchase being something that they don't necessarily want or need. They want a minivan, and this is not a minivan. And Deborah tells that to him, and he doesn't listen to her, essentially. Combined with the fact that the car is not only not a minivan, but also a death trap, knocks him down a little bit. And then it's a death trap that he fondly remembers because he fucked someone else in it. I mean, I think he eventually solves the problem, but all of the problem is one that he created and didn't need to exist in the first place. So I can't in good conscience bump him above a 5, but I am going to give him, he was a good dad. I give him a point for fucking as always. And he, he did the right thing in the end. It just, none of this should have happened because he just shouldn't have bought the car. He should have just let it go. But yeah, a 4 is where I'm coming in. So Mike, what does that average out to?
I gave him a 3.5. Brian gave him a 2.5. Alex gave him a 6. I believe that comes out to exactly a 4.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah. 4.
Wonderful.
I want to add on real quick. Maybe an out-of-show reason I scored a little higher this time is that this is the first episode we're recording since the analytics of the first 10 episodes came out.
Mm-hmm.
And in those analytics, I discovered that I was more harsh on Ray than anyone else.
Really?
Oh.
So maybe this is also me subconsciously trying to give him a little more slack.
Overcompensating.
Yeah, maybe a little. But
It's like you're a
giving him
dad who has been neglecting and resenting his son because he doesn't like sports, so now you're trying to really bond with him over anime, and you're overcompensating. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like I'm positive of the three of us, and that does not reflect in my grades, and I feel bad about that.
Cognitive dissonance. But no, nope, there's no segue there. But that's the end of our episode. That's the end of our show. Thank you so much, Brian, for being here. You are a new friend, but we are so thrilled to have you. We had so much fun. You're welcome back anytime, etc., etc. Everyone should go check out High School Slumber Party and all of your other works. Anything else to add?
No, just
Brian, back
sorry.
And when we aren't having technical difficulties, that's what I was saying.
Well,
Come back.
Come back.
Okay. Well, thank.
Oh my god.
Thank you guys. This was an absolute pleasure. I want to thank Olivia out there for turning me on to your show because this is really cool. She speaks so highly of you guys, not your technical prowess, but everything else. And you lived up to those expectations. And I hope I can just slightly contribute to this show by any means. And I can't wait to listen to more episodes and one day pop back into the Barone Zone.
The door is always open because it's beads. As for us, rate and review this podcast on Apple and Spotify and wherever you listen. Check out our sponsors at postfund.info/ads. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Barone Zone. And is that all that I say? Mike, anything to add? Alex, anything to add?
Thank you all so much for tuning in. Remember to support our sponsors using the link in the description. And yeah, join us next week.
Yeah.
All right.
And I guess it's just our classic sign-off.
That's right. It's time for our classic sign-off. So, Brian, I don't know if you've made it to the end of any episodes, but the way that we sign off on this show is when we have a guest, we have them say, "Everybody loves Raymond," and then all together we say, "And we love you." And that's the end of our show. And and that's the end of our show. So we'll throw to you and then just drop "And everybody loves Raymond," and then we'll get the fuck out of here.
I wish I could do the Brad Garrett "Everybody Loves Raymond." Next time I get on, I'm going to work on it. It's like "Everybody loves Raymond." I can't get the Ray. I don't have that.
You're closer than me.
I'll just do my regular voice. Everybody loves Raymond.
And we love you. Just trusting that they're doing it.
All
All right.